Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Tamalpais Union High School District Candidate Forum. We welcome our viewers joining us by live stream on YouTube. I'm Tara Topier, Superintendent of the Tamalpais Union High School District. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters of Marin County for organizing and moderating this event. We are delighted to co-host this forum with the League of Women Voters to ensure that voters have every opportunity to make an informed decision on this important leadership role in our county. And now I'm pleased to hand the reins over to this evening's moderator, League President Ann Wakely.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ann Wakely, and I'm your moderator for this evening. Thank you for joining us for this candidate forum featuring candidates for Tamalpais Union High School District Board of Trustees. And thank you to the Tamalpais Union High School District for inviting the League to moderate. We're honored to be here. The League is a trusted, nonpartisan membership organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We promote voter education and advocate for issues. We never endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. Moderating candidate forums is an important part of our work. With me are League members Pat Becker, our timekeeper, and Didi Buttori, who is providing Zoom support, along with the technical support team at the Community Media Center of Marin, CMCM. A reminder, all the candidates have agreed to participate under the ground rules set for this forum. This evening's forum is being live streamed on the League's YouTube channel and simulcast on Marin TV Channel 30, facilitated through our partnership with CMCM. It's being recorded and will be available through our website at marinlwv.org. It will be rebroadcast on Marin TV Channel 30, and days and times will be posted on our website. Candidates will be allowed specific times for their opening and closing remarks and to respond to questions. There are 6 candidates running for the Board of Trustees. 5 of them are with us this evening. They are Renee Marcelle, Barbara McVeigh, Cynthia Roenisch, Kevin Saavedra, and Emily Uhlhorn. The candidates are invited to make a 2-minute opening statement. After that, they will each have 1 minute to answer each question. And to be fair, I will rotate the order. For opening statements, we will begin with Kevin.
Hello, my name is Kevin Saavedra. I am an incumbent trustee on the TAM District Board, having run in 2018, seeking re-election this year. I am a resident of Marin for about 25 years now. Raised my kids in San Anselmo, both of whom went through the high school, the public school system through the high school formerly known as Drake. I got involved in oversight and volunteering for the public school systems about 10 years ago. First, on behalf of the Ross Valley School System, my son, who was involved in music programs there. And that sort of led me down a path that led me to here. My background, I'm a finance professional, having worked in finance for almost 30 years now here in the Bay Area. I brought what I believed to be, a contribution I thought was valuable to citizens oversight and financial advisory for the Ross Valley School District, the Drake Fund Board, the Fiscal Advisory Committee for the TAM District, ultimately leading me to be the treasurer of the parcel tax campaign in 2018. And while I was at it, why not run for a seat on the board too? I am a product of public education. I'm a believer in public education. I got involved because I wanted to support something that I believe in, that I believed, was very beneficial to my kids. And it's only when you kind of get further along in your career in, when your kids are advancing through the school system, you come to understand what the oversight role and really, sort of the Board of Trustees entails. And I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed, providing my voice to the steward of stewarding, our and oversee, helping oversee the administration, helping.
Thank you, Kevin.
What I think would be helpful is if we just see like a 30-second countdown, because that's, I'm not counting that in my head.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Barbara, please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Barbara McVeigh. Excuse the raspy voice. It is flu season. Working with kids, it's that time of year. I'm so happy to be part of this discussion. Great board members, thank you to your service the last 4 years. I did run 4 years ago, believing that I could add some value to the board with some of my perspective and work that I've done for the last probably 30 years, including social justice work, immigrant work, workers' rights, many other artistic endeavors as well, in order to bridge the differences here in Marin County. My journey probably began after my own public school experience when I traveled by myself at 22 years old and sat on a temple in Guatemala, completely amazed that I had heard nothing about these Mayan indigenous communities and some of the greatest civilizations ever during my entire public school education. And I felt so cheated by that it really took me on a long journey to many places around the world to understand the different stories and different perspectives, which brought me back to Marin County, leading me to work with building programs, whether it was a nonprofit sailing organization for youth at risk, Marin City Kids, the Canal District, and more. Those were some phenomenal years, and I met some phenomenal families. It was really a blessing. My experience with those communities, I feel, can really be an advantage in this discussion, and that is what I want to bring to the table. I see so much racial injustice in our schools and our youth not understanding the power of a community we have and our responsibility to it. And that is something I would like to bring to a table and be a strong voice and put my position forward on those issues. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Cynthia.
Hi, thank you for having all of us here and giving this opportunity to speak to the community. Like Kevin, I have been on the board for the last 4 years and prior to that served 13 years as a school trustee in the Kentfield schools. So a tremendous amount of experience with kind of overseeing districts, which is really key for trustees to understand what our role is and that we are not the experts, that we have a wonderful superintendent and administrators and teachers and paraeducators and support staff that run the campuses. So I know that well. I am a former attorney and currently a AP English teacher at Alameda High School, where I've been teaching for 13 years. So lots of experience in asking questions. Attorneys are very good at asking questions and getting information at our board meetings that helps the board make a decision, right? And as I said, we're fortunate to have the support that we do in the district, led by Dr. Topier. Also a member of the Racial Justice Task Force that's existed for 2 years in the TAM district, that's been doing important work and work that's being led by students, both in coming up with goals for the task force, as well as the racial equity policy, which we passed in June. And looking forward, hopefully, to be reelected to continue that work and to focus on diversifying our curriculum, diversifying the experience that's reflected in our curriculum, and diversify our hiring so that students feel safe and included and engaged on our campus. So hopefully I can continue the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Emily?
Thank you. Thank you for having us all here tonight. My name is Emily Uhlhorn. I am a mother of 4. I am a current school board trustee in Mill Valley, and I have a master's of special education. I have and will continue to be an advocate for equity-based, student-focused decision-making. Like Cynthia and Kevin, as a sitting trustee, I understand the role of governance and what it takes to be an effective trustee and an effective part of a team. And there are 3 main topics I'd like to talk about tonight. The first is racial justice and racial equity. I will be a voice for both. Cynthia spoke about some of the fantastic work that has been done and acknowledged that there's much work to be done. And that work is all about imbuing each school, each classroom with anti-racist, culturally responsive teaching practices. This is good for all students. Elevating a diversity voice is good for everyone as they move out of our high schools and into the world. These need to be measurable And we as a board need to be held accountable to make sure it's happening in every classroom. The second are facilities and finance. As a current school board trustee, a member of the Community Financial Advisory Committee, I also serve on JLAC, which is a county-wide board. I have a keen understanding of school finance. I know what levers we can pull and what we can't, and how important it is as we look to a potential recession to think about out-year budgeting. I also have a background in running parcel tax campaigns and have worked on school bonds. As the district looks towards a potential 2024 bond, I will bring that experience to the forefront. And finally, it's about collaboration and shared resources. Districts across the county are grappling with the impact of COVID-19. We're all looking at mental health and wellness, at inequities within our school systems, and learning loss. It will be vital that we come together with our feeder districts and we look at all students, current and future TAM students. The more we work together to address these issues with a focus on eliminating the achievement gap, the better.
Thank you, Emily. Renee. Unmute yourself, please, Renee.
Yep. Hello, I'm Renee Marcelle. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. I've been a family law lawyer for 30 years and a special education advocate for about the same amount of time. And I've been in the TAM district for 30 years as a school volunteer as well. I will use my knowledge, my experience and credentials to realize the TAM district's vision of preparing all students for the future, both academically, professionally, and personally. What makes me further qualified is my extensive work with multi-million-dollar budgets and projections. I was chair of the Kentfield School District Citizen Oversight Committee for the District Measure D bond, improvement bond, for the past 6 years. I ensured that the $30 million expenditures met the legal requirements, actually, and went to campus overcrowding, modernization, safety, and security for our students. I've given you a snapshot of the skills and the experience that I have, that I bring to this position. But as a mother of 2 teens in the district, I want to be very, very clear, and I'm very seriously invested in curbing the influences that are invading our schools for reasons other than improving educational outcomes. My goal is to stay focused on academics and not ideology. I will bring the Marin school districts together to collaborate, share resources, close the opportunity gap, and to ensure that all students find success in high school and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will begin with the questions. And Renee, you go first this time. What do you view as the role and key responsibilities of a school board trustee?
I think that, and do I get a minute for this?
1 minute, yes.
I think the key is to reach a consensus, to learn what is necessary for the district and to collaborate together and to speak as a single voice for the district. I believe that board members should also bring their experience to the board and to be a person who reflects the values in the community. I think that it's imperative that we reflect the values in the community and that we do not make up our own decisions based upon whatever a certain study says or a certain impact by outside influences. So it seems to me it's a variety of things. I think mostly it needs to be focused on forward thinking.
Thank you, Renee. Emily?
Thank you. So we are lucky enough to have a fantastic superintendent. I will start there because given that, one of our major roles is to support and be a public voice for the great work that's being done. CSBA will tell us what our roles are. So we're supposed to establish structures, provide support, ensure accountability, and be advocates for students and the district in our community. Primarily, I think our job is to be student-centered. And as we are student-centered, we sometimes need to make tough decisions. One thing I think that we can really help with as trustees is explaining the why behind the decision, because often people see the decision that is made, but they don't necessarily understand the why. And so that is something that I am committed to, is being able to be out in the community and help explain the why as we continue to support Tara and her team in the great work that they are doing.
Thank you, Emily. Cynthia.
So Emily outlined the role of a trustee exactly, right? We oversee, right? We hire the superintendent, which, we don't need to be doing in the next 4 years because we've got a great one. And then we oversee the budget, right? So in the last 4 years, Kevin and I have worked with the other board members to stabilize the budget in the TAM district. And then we oversee curriculum and that we're responsible for approving the standards, right? That we're following the standards. And a responsible budget allows us to then go onto the campus and make sure we have safe and inclusive atmosphere for all students, that we have a diversified, rigorous, and inclusive curriculum. And that's the area that trustees in this district will be focusing on for the next 4 years. But we defer to the experts, right? Tara, her team, the teachers, the paras, and the support staff.
Thank you. Barbara.
Thank you so much. I agree with most of what has been said. I would add that we all can bring a certain spirit of our own belief system or our own experiences to ensure that others who do come to the board with their ideas, with their challenges, that we understand on a deeper level what those are. I think that's very vital. It's a spirit that you carry. I also think that our students should be far more involved than they are. I think, as I've seen in past board meetings, there's opportunity to bring that more into focus. I also think that there are certain issues that we have to change protocol a little bit because we are in changing times. We have an environmental crisis that's been looming for 40 years. We are on the verge of a crisis, and we really need to change some standards and be bold and brave on this issue, and to ensure those who have the ideas that we can be trusted to also be bold and strong.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay. Kevin? Unmute yourself, please.
Yep, thanks. Ditto what Cynthia and Emily said in regards to the role of a trustee. We are the public-facing representatives of the school district, responsible for the voters in terms of ensuring that what the community endorses as LCAP goals are being manifest in our school district, and providing the support and guidance to our superintendent to execute those plans. Taking responsibility to ensure that the budgeting process is completed properly, to provide support for things like developing community support for in the upcoming facilities master plan. We are not in the classroom. We collaborate as a board to try to get to the best possible outcome in providing outward-facing support and inward-facing support and direction to our administration.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay. Another question. How can the TAM district support a healthy and thriving community for all students, including Black, Indigenous, Asian, Latinx, and all students of color, as well as LGBTQAI+ and neurodivergent students. And Kevin, you'll go first this time.
Sure. First, I'd say don't use the term Latinx. It's offensive. I am half Mexican. I'm one generation away from being a poor Mexican. And I certainly have my perspective about what that means in terms of public school. And I think that the work we've been doing is important. I am not entirely supportive of the way that's been structured or the anti-racist resolution that came out. I think it missed an opportunity on a variety of points. I think that's exacerbated by the fact that in our in Marin County, it is we understand that we are not in alignment with the diversity generally within California. I think we're doing the work, but I think we could be doing better than we're doing.
Thank you. Barbara?
I've had my share of struggles, as everyone. When I was 13 years old, I waited for the FBI to come arrest my father. It was the great 1981 national strike, which seems to have been forgotten in our history books. I've done some research on that. It was an amazing time because I got to witness how media can propagandize and how government can put fear into you when you're actually doing something that is very important. And as we've seen in these last 40 years, the inequity that has built, not just racially, but economically, which is the cornerstone of so much angst between the different people. It's a place where we have to look at and understand and unite. There is so much stigma, even with my own kids. I'm considered working poor. That's my choice. I've chosen to be an artist and to work on projects. And I'm not turning back on that, but I've been able to watch my own kids. We're fine, we'll handle it. But it is opportunity to bridge people together.
Thank you, Barbara. Cynthia?
So kids have to feel safe and included on campus in order to soar. And so with our focus on our curriculum and our hiring and trying to expand and diversify both the curriculum points of view, perspectives in the curriculum, as well as diversify our hiring to better reflect maybe individual experiences that students have, that can only help students. Culturally responsive teaching, which requires all teachers to be warm demanders and believing that all students can succeed, that takes us a long way to success and feeling safe for all students. We have opened up the AP courses. There's no barriers to get into the AP courses, right? And teachers are working to encourage students who may have been marginalized in the AP experience to consider taking those courses and challenging themselves so that all students have access to a rigorous, supportive education that will then help them succeed once they leave the TAM district. And so the work of the task force, the racial equity task force, is important.
Thank you. Emily?
Thank you. Cynthia stole my opening because truly students do have to feel safe and valued and respected before they can be successful in academics. And so this work is absolutely foundational when we think about all of our students' success. There's a lot that I think can go into this. Certainly the racial equity work that is happening has been incredibly important. Culturally responsive teaching, I mean, some of the core tenets there, right, are having high expectations for all students, making sure that our teachers and our paraeducators all have the training that they need to really be able to respond appropriately and include and elevate all voices, and to make all families feel included. I also think that as we reach down into our elementary and middle school districts, this work is crucial there too, because kids start developing racial identities at the age of 3. And so by the time you get into high school, you're unwinding that. So we need to all be speaking the same language, doing the same work, and coming together around how we make absolutely every student and every family feel welcome to our community. Thank you.
Renee, please unmute yourself.
you. I'm not a person who pays lip service to racial equity. I've always had my own skin in the game. We lived in Sausalito when my stepchildren went to MLK and to TAM. And I fought hard for those kids through school and through the criminal justice system for such atrocities as driving while Black. So what we need to do in the district is to continue to do programs like the team program, the Pathways program, the Let's Play and Marin City program, and above all, parental involvement, because when the parents feel connected and the children feel connected and the teachers begin to feel connected, like their new programs are starting up at the district, I think it's a recipe for excellent success.
Thank you. Okay, as enrollment declines, how would you maintain a balanced budget and ensure student success? And Emily, you get to go first this time.
Fantastic. So first, just to touch on the budget, the district and Board of Trustees has done a great job in the last 4 years maintaining and growing reserves during rising enrollment. So now that we're looking at slowing enrollment and reducing enrollment, a couple things are very important. One is to proportionally align our staffing as we decrease in enrollment. And no one wants to get in the position where you need to have layoffs if you can do it sort of on the natural with retirements. We also need to be cognizant of rising pension costs. Pension relief is going away. So we have another $1.1 million this year in pension costs, and that will continue to go up. We also need to look at the potential of a recession. As a community funded district, our funding is based primarily on property taxes. And so we need to make sure as we look at the out years that we're really planning to staff appropriately and proportionally as we reduce our enrollment. Thanks.
Thank you. Renee.
Thank you. I believe that a good thing to do would be to continue to do the work that the superintendent, Tara Tapier, has started to do, and that is to share expenses in the district. There's an organization of superintendents of schools that are meeting regularly and are consistently trying to figure out more and more which expenses can be shared between the districts. A proportional alignment is absolutely critical and growing our reserves. And the board did do a great job, almost too good, to the extent that we have a surplus now. And so the board is completely ready for any recession that could or could not be coming along our way. So they've done well with that, I have to say.
Thank you. Kevin.
I'd say we need to do more of what we've been doing. When Cynthia and I got elected, the district was headed for insolvency. We, again, credit to the administration that was managing their way through that, but it's supporting and certainly, I believe that we were both there to make hard decisions and take responsibility of that to the community when it involved things like retirement incentives, suspending programs that we didn't have the money to do at that time. We're in a good place now. I think going forward, it is ensuring that we stay at a comfortable reserve level while we hopefully are able to reintroduce a program that we feel is valuable at the schools and throughout the community, while being always mindful of the fact that managing a basic aid district is like turning a battleship. You need to see it years in advance.
Thank you, Kevin.
Mm.
Barbara.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. We live in one of the most artistic communities in the country. We have Narada Michael Walden, Carlos Santana, their children. We have diverse cultural artists in the canal who are phenomenal. We have musicians in Marin City. You know, there has to come a time when we start to celebrate each other, and that could be done so well with joy, which would heal so many people in depression these days. Music is a healing component. And start integrating these collaborative community events as fundraisers. We've got the top notch here. Joan Baez, I've worked with some of them. I made a film about one of the greatest Brazilian guitarists, Jose Neto. Why are we not tapping into these people who have lived here and want to contribute to their own community while showing our children it means to come together as a community? Art is powerful.
Thank you, Barbara. Cynthia.
Tacking on to some of Emily and Kevin's comments about, I think it starts with you have to have board members that are fluent in financials, right? I think that the current board has done a good job, as people have said, to work with the administration to look at staffing, to not be able to spend in certain years, suspend temporarily programs and make the hard decisions that the community might not agree with at the time, but we're responsible for the budget. Yes. And we are basic aid, so we do have a healthy reserve. We are cognizant of the pension costs. And I would say that we have prudence in setting the budget. And I think that's shared by Tara and her team. I think that's shared by the teachers and the people that work on the campuses. And so we are a team working on this, trying to maintain and even extend the phenomenal program that we have, while also having healthy reserves that if something happened, we'd have time to unwind.
Thank you, Cynthia. All right, next question. Since the COVID pandemic, the public's trust in schools has eroded. In your opinion, what should the district do to regain that lost trust? And Cynthia, you get to go first this time.
Okay, yes, I do think nationally the public trust in schools has eroded. I do think that our community appreciates the efforts that Dr. Topier and her team and supported by the board did to get the schools open as soon as, kind of feasibly possible on a high school schedule, right? Recognizing that high schools move through 7 periods. You can't have standard cohorts, right, where you can limit exposure. And so we always followed the science. We always followed the California Department of Health, the Marin Department of Health. And we were very, I think, transparent about that. And many parents wanted the schools open sooner. Once the schools were open, I think we started to maybe regain some of the trust that had been lost. But I do think that transparency and communicating our decisions going forward helps build trust in the community. So it's always a good thing to do as a school board.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. First, I would just say that across the county, the way that our superintendents all work together, along with the Marin County Office of Education and the Department of Public Health, I think was unparalleled. The state used Marin County as an exemplar, an example of what to do well. That said, of course, there was trust loss. People were scared. People were concerned. I think that one of the things that we need to do is just be out public and sharing the great things that are happening in our schools, because there are a lot of great things that are happening. We also need to be forthright about things that aren't working. And I think that Tara and her team do that very well. I also think sharing resources is key. Renee touched on the effectiveness committee that is a district or countywide committee. I sit on that committee, and so we're actively looking at ways to collaborate across districts from school board members and superintendents. And so I think the more we can show the community that we are being careful and cognizant with dollars, the more faith they will feel in all of us as stewards.
Thank you. Renee.
The trust has been eroded, I think, because of the divergence of opinions with respect to proper handling of the COVID situation. Nobody knew before it happened what was proper. In hindsight, we have a lot of ideas. And for a lot of people, they still aren't 100% on board. Personally, I think that the actions that the district took were well planned and well thought of. They did very well at getting students back to school. With respect to the trust, I think largely that has to continue with more parental involvement. It has to continue with more student involvement. And it has to also be a product of the school, the parents, and the professionals all working together so that this distrust no longer exists. And the way you do that is to bring in more parents and to bring in more community members.
Thank you, Renee. Kevin.
Perhaps we lost some community trust at the margin. I think we lost less than most, and I think we gained it back faster than most. And I think, to what Cynthia was referring to, I think the credit goes to the administration, the relationship with the two labor unions, the ability to open our schools up faster than most, I think was a demonstrative, it was the evidence that people were looking for. And COVID was the weirdest thing I hope we ever have to live through. But I'm very happy with the way that our district navigated through that. And what I believe is a perception of success or accomplishment through that process is better than most. So I'm not convinced that there's a lasting loss of confidence by our community. And I'm happy, very happy with where we are right now.
Thank you. Barbara.
Powerful lesson I learned in the 1981 national strike was that people can lie, and they can lie really bad. And while I was watching these last 2 years, I was trying to ask questions all along, like, why is it possible the first week of the pandemic, 5G was launched, Elon Musk's Starlink was launched, a new military arm was launched. That was Space Force, something that Reagan tried to do 40 years ago. And there was outcry throughout the nation. What has happened to us? Why didn't we pay attention to that? Another thing, it did reveal the Great Barrington Declaration, esteemed doctors, professors from Stanford, Harvard, and Oxford, focused protection, revealing an incredible unhealthy society that we have of obesity, dietary diseases, and more. We have a lot of questions to be asking right now, and we should be unafraid to ask them. I'm not, and I think we all should be, because I believe we just followed a communist authoritarian country, China.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay. The next question is, a recent student survey found that many students do not believe that what they are learning in the classroom is relevant to their life outside of school. How would you address this concern? Barbara?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. A recent student survey found that many students do not believe what they are learning in the classroom is relevant to their life outside of school. How would you address this concern? Okay, thank you. It's actually one of my big topics. We have gone so big tech heavy in this community, and I think it's been a real injustice. If you just even look at the economics behind it, and that so much of those economics have supported an authoritarian communist nation that we are buffering with right now in the Taiwan Straits. You know, we don't make a connection to these things. Kids see this, they do, but what we're lacking in is showing them and valuing them for other kinds of work besides technology. It's always driven toward technology. I tried an experiment at Archie Williams. I said, what would happen if we just took that out of the formula for 1 week? And teachers came to the meeting, we all sat down. Everyone said they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to teach. And I thought that is a real interesting point. We need to reconfigure what are the priorities in an education and the essential learning. And that goes to food, that goes to understanding land management, restoration, some of the problems that they're going to be facing. Thank you, Barbara. Cynthia.
You're right. That survey does point to an issue in the district. And I think in high school curriculum in general, is tying it to relevancy in the world. And that starts with curriculum that is highly engaging, that's culturally responsive, and that students can see connections between what they're getting in the classroom and experiences that they have in the world, and they feel more engaged and connected in the classroom. We also have programs, sustainable farming, right? Agriculture, some of the schools, we've got the team program, we have pathways that's available. So we have some things that are more directly related to perhaps job pursuits, food production, things like that. But the teaching and the teacher leaders coming back, the teacher leadership program that Dr. Topier has brought back, teachers are reviewing the curriculum and they are addressing that question. How do we make this more relevant to student lives while preserving rigorous education that sets them up for whatever they do? So the district is undergoing that analysis, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. This is one that I think the district is tackling head on, and it's been impressive to see the presentations about it and to really acknowledge the issues that are there. I would echo a couple of things that Cynthia said again, particularly the culturally responsive teaching, and then also ensuring that we are hiring a diverse staff, right? We know that students do better when they are reflected in the people who are teaching them. They also do better when they are reflected in the books they are reading and the history that they're learning about. So as Dr. Topier and her team dig into curriculum, that is a key point. Cynthia already talked about pathways. There's a new fantastic program being rolled out that's a career technical program that is going to be available to high school students countywide. It's going to be housed at Terra Linda High School, but there will be transportation provided. And so the more I think that there are programs like that that we can feed our kids into who have interest, and it'll be an afternoon program. So students who are done with school early will be able to participate in it. So I think the more we can work together on that, the better.
Great, thank you. Kevin.
Others stole my talking points about pathways and the team program. 2 years of work from home or school from home has certainly changed people's perspective, I think, and I think there are some opportunities in the same way that getting back into a professional context that is more like it was pre-COVID affords us an opportunity to do something similar when it comes to school. Whether that is getting kids out of the classroom into a natural environment or more of a commercial environment to help them understand the application of what they're learning into what would ultimately be, a career or college and then a career, or into other exploits. I think those are, I think that the oddity of COVID provides us an opportunity to reconceive some of those things. And I believe that thinking has begun.
Great, thank you. All students have lost learning experience due to COVID. Disadvantaged students and students of color, particularly those from Marin City, have lost more than average. How do you plan to address these inequities? Kevin, you get to go first.
Sure. My hope is that at some point over the next 4 years, we truly expend some political capital at the county level to affirmatively address not only learning loss, but I think the systemic failure of that district that we've been watching over the last several years, whether it's administrative failures that we are seeing manifest in our high school, kids that are coming out of that school that really was, I think, an irresponsible loss of education opportunity for them. I can't tell you that I know what the answer is, but I think that our district has enough, again, political capital that I think that I would like to see us spending it to try to more affirmatively engage that issue with some opportunities that I think we could bring to them.
Barbara?
Thank you. Well, we can all acknowledge, even for us adults, the level of stress, anxiety, anger, so many negative fear that we experienced. I hope that the learning, though, that our children have also gained through this experience is community and valuing things that they might not have that they missed out on. There's been a lot of learning that has also been acknowledged. Let's focus on the positive. I mean, is it always about academics? I mean, that's important, but let's also engage them in a way of, what did you learn through this? It has been a world global event, not many would ever experience, and hopefully we won't experience again. But what happened? And let them extend themselves into the wisdom that they gained from it, maybe through health, their own, and taking more responsibility for their health, or others in their community, or understanding the corporate junk food industry and what it's doing to our communities. These are learning opportunities. I'm not afraid of, when a negative thing happens to you, find the point that you can learn from it.
Thank you, Barbara. Cynthia.
So the district is already in the midst of trying to address struggles of students who struggled with learning during COVID. Our CASP test results, which aren't formulated for release yet, actually show that the learning loss was not as severe as maybe in surrounding counties and nationwide. But we ran a summer school this summer. We heard about it on Tuesday night. Extensive outreach to families starting in March. To try and get kids to campus so they could recover credit in 1 or 2 courses, the foundational courses. Tremendous success. There's also a focus this year on attendance. And so to catch kids before they become chronically absent, and then to be in touch with them. Why aren't you here? Come to school. We want you here. We want you to feel that this is safe and inclusive. And when you're on campus, that's when you can learn. Also tremendous support for the wellness centers, recognizing the anxiety and the depression and some of the things that might be getting in the way of students either coming to school or succeeding when they are there. So the district is going forward with all of those efforts.
Thank you. Emily?
So again, climate and culture is foundational to this work, right? Students have to feel like they belong and like they're able to engage in their classroom. The district is doing a lot. Cynthia touched on summer school. They've also expanded AVID, hired instructional coaches, expanded the student success team. There's a tremendous amount of work doing. I think it was about $2 million that are being spent on those resources this year. I also think, though, that we need to, in particular with math, and we saw that math was the subject that there were the most Ds, Fs, and incompletes in last spring. We need to be working together. We know that this is an opportunity as the California Math Framework is being rolled out. And I think we can be leaders in the TAM district when it comes to curriculum and instruction. And students right now are coming in different places. Some of our elementary districts start tracking kids at the end of 6th grade, some don't. But that has a real unequal impact as those students come to us in 9th grade. So I think we need to be leaders in bringing together those elementary and middle school districts.
Thank you. Renee?
Thank you. I think what's really important here is engaging curriculum. And it's also important to have smaller class sizes so that the children can get connections with their teachers so that they will be engaged with their teachers. Teachers also need to be taught how to teach more. And I know that teachers think that they've got the edge on this, but there is a program that is being rolled out this year, which will be teaching teachers how to engage the students more. I think that the clubs at school are going to be extremely helpful. I think that it takes actual connections one-on-one between teachers and individual students. And the best way to do that would be by having lower class sizes. To get lower class sizes, you need to have more teachers. And so that's the sort of thing that we need to be doing and concentrating on.
Thank you. All right. How would you construct COVID guidelines given the current situation And how would you respond if the threat of a COVID outbreak becomes more substantial? And we will start with Renee this time.
Construct COVID outline. I'm not 100%.
You want me to read that again?
I'm not sure I understand what is intended.
How
by-
would you, I'll read it again. How
Okay.
would you construct COVID guidelines given the current situation? And how would you respond if the threat of a COVID outbreak becomes more substantial?
Well, I don't think I really understand that question. So construct the guidelines. If you mean stay home, if you have contracted COVID for 5 days, follow CDC, whether it means ensure that students come prepared with vaccines. I really don't know what's contemplated by the question. So I think that the district did a great job with COVID. I am very pleased that masks came off this past March. I think that keeping the masks off is a really good idea. I think we also learned that children are not getting COVID at the same rates as the adults are. And knowing that, I think keeping schools open in hindsight would be the way to go. So.
Thank you. Emily.
So I would say my guiding light would be keeping kids in-person school. That said, I don't think we create COVID guidelines. That's what we depend on public health and the strong partnership with public health for. They are the scientists, they are the experts, they brought in all of the evidence, and they were the ones who, in conjunction with the folks at MCOE and our superintendents and our leaders across the county, developed the 30-point plan to keep kids in school, or and all of the rules that we all needed to follow. We do know what keeps people safe. So we know masking is the number one thing we can do. And so if they were to recommend that masking come back, then I would absolutely follow the recommendations of public health. We also learned that there was less transmission among students in school than there was among students out of school when they weren't able to be in-person education. And so that is a very, very key data point if we were to hit a point again where the possibility of talking about closing down schools was put on the table.
Thank you. Cynthia.
So echo everything that Emily just said. I think a lot that we learned was the priority of keeping schools open. And yes, we defer to the experts. The board does not come up with guidelines because we're not experts on it, right? Dr. Topier worked with the Department of Health, right, in the county, then looking to the CDC, the state, and then that's where the guidelines come from. And I think that so I think the priority is to have kids at school. Should it become necessary with another outbreak or increased virulence to move temporarily to remote learning, that can happen much more quickly than it did in the past, right? We've got the technology, we have the teaching practices and all of that. But yes, we defer to the experts with the focus on prioritizing keeping the schools open and given the evidence around transmission and the importance of children being in person for learning.
Thank you. Barbara.
I also like to listen to the experts, and I go back to the Great Barrington Declaration by high-level health officials of Stanford, Oxford, and Harvard. We know a lot more than we did a year ago or 2 years ago. In fact, a year ago, there were enough of us who were raising enough questions to ask, how is it possible that there is the greatest wealth transfer in the history of humanity happening right now to those very people who are helping to instigate policies? Where are the educated people asking these questions? We also know that 80% of the people who had very unfortunate reactions had major dietary diseases and were extremely elderly, okay? That calls out for a whole nother conversation. One, that the NPR wrote about just 2 weeks ago, the US diet is deadly, which has brought on a White House conference of nutrition. Nutrition is where we need to go. We need to make sure our children are healthy.
Thank you, Barbara. Kevin.
Yeah, I wouldn't change our guidelines because I think we've shown that they work. We are lucky to live in a community that believes in science, that follows the guidance of our local, state, and federal health services. And that served us well. And I think that, coupled with a good relationship with our teachers, has allowed us to open soon and close or mask or whatever, if that has to come at some point in the future. I wouldn't make any changes. I believe we have adhered ourselves to the science, and I think we have done well in that effort, and thankfully with the support of our community.
Thank you. Okay, 10 elementary districts feed into the Tamalpais Junior High School District, creating a variety of issues as students enter high school. What are your thoughts with regard to possible district unification? And Renee, you get to go first.
Well, my thought on district unification is probably not really relevant to what the TAM district does, but it appears to me that we would be hard pressed in our county to get more unification. I think that everybody loves their school, and I can't imagine any of the little theater schools wanting to combine. So I don't know. I'm not sure that that's a helpful idea. It doesn't sound like it would make a difference one way or the other as far as the board work is concerned.
Thank you. Kevin.
I don't believe it's for us to pass judgment. I will say that multiple feeder school districts is ultimately the decision of those communities. I think the downside is that it adds more layers of administrative overhead and boards and perhaps a lack of continuity. But on the flip side, I do think that it creates a sense of community that I think is valuable. I don't think it is a problem that manifests at the high school. So I ultimately think it's something that if those multiple districts want to be independent, I think that is perfectly fine.
Thank you. Barbara.
I don't have an answer. What I would want is time to really thoroughly think about the pros and the cons, and most importantly, listen to people of that community and others to hear what they have to think, what they feel about the situation. So, those are the people I think we really want to respect and hear from. So I'm not opposed to it, but again, it would be something that I would want to really understand the consequences, good and bad. So there's always a trade-off. But these are new times. It's opportunity to reshape and rethink things. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia.
Simple answer, that's not our decision to make. It's the feeder districts, and the process is extraordinarily complex because of the funding of school districts and the steps that would have to be taken, right? Going to the voters, getting approval from the county superintendent, getting approval from California Department of Education. And I think efforts can be better spent in focusing on educating the students in the feeder districts and then educating the students when they come to the TAM district. I'm not going to agree that there's necessarily problems that come from students coming from 10 different feeder districts, because we all follow the California Common Core standards, right? So yes, students need easing into high school, right? In their freshman year, getting used to high school, getting used to kind of a new independence and things like that. And good teachers are always checking to see where students are when they come into a school. And I think our teachers do that. And then you work on remediating or reteaching or doing some things to get people up to grade level. But it doesn't come because we have 10 feeder districts.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. As Cynthia said, it's an incredibly lengthy and complex process. You have to get statewide approval. Both school boards have to vote for it. And then ultimately each community has to decide that they want to merge. Even if both communities are headed that direction, it takes about 6 years. So that is certainly not anything that's happening anytime soon, even if districts decided it was something they wanted to do. That said, we should be sharing more resources. There is a CBO shortage, for example, statewide. And so to the extent that districts have the capacity to work with other districts and share resources like their chief business officer, potentially human resources, that is all the better and certainly will increase the effectiveness and efficiency of our districts. I also, as I've talked about earlier, I think there are other places that we can collaborate and share resources: professional development, curriculum and instruction, family education, and mental health resources. A lot of this work is already happening countywide, led in large part by MCOE, but there's more work to be done and more that we can all do together.
Thank you. All right, next question. Recently, religion in public schools has made national news. What is your position on religion in public schools? And Emily, you get to go first.
I don't think that there is a place for religion in public schools beyond learning about it as a discipline. I think that learning about different cultures, learning about different religions is absolutely valuable and certainly foundational, in particular when you look at literature. And then certainly when you are learning to respect and value and honor people of different cultures and from different places. So from that perspective, I think it's very valuable, but I don't think that it has any place in public education in terms of sort of the traditional view and what we're seeing nationwide. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Renee?
That's a great question. I don't believe that religion has any place in school. And right now, there is a huge push nationwide to bring ideology into schools. And I am standing firmly against any ideology being brought into schools. And specifically, I'm speaking about gender ideology. It really is tantamount to a religion and has no place to be in a school. It's a feeling, it's a belief, and it is esoteric as any Sufi religion or any other sort of religion, and absolutely must stay out. We need to concentrate on academics and concentrate on getting our children up to speed, not introducing ideology that they can learn from their own homes, not the school.
Kevin?
I agree that it's not appropriate to introduce organized religion into schools. I think religion as an academic topic is appropriate, but I think that should be the limits of its contribution to our public school process.
Thank you. Barbara?
I very much value the sharing, learning about different religions on a cultural basis. It helps people not have fear of one another, helps to understand the depth of some cultures and maybe respect as well. Under no circumstances should there be any pushing an agenda. It's more about just sharing and respecting one another. So I'll leave it at that as well, because that's pretty much my viewpoint on it. Otherwise, it becomes a propagandized agenda. And that's not something I think our schools are in the business to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia.
I agree. Religion in the First Amendment says religion has no place in our public schools, right? So we'd be violating law to have that. However, I do think there's tremendous value in teaching a course on world religions to our children at the school. I was required to take it in independent boarding school. It's one of those valuable courses that I took. I actually taught a course voluntarily to students of mine during their tutorial at Alameda High School because I wanted to learn more. So I used a college textbook on world religions and they found it fascinating. So it does, it does encourage inclusivity and tolerance and curiosity and engagement with, many ideas in the world. So that belongs in a history course or a cultural study class, but no, there is no place for organized religion in public schools, whether it's in the classroom or on the field, right? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next question. With recent inflation, most employees have lost purchasing power. What measures should the district take to address this concern? Cynthia.
So the district is cognizant of the rate of inflation, and as we enter into negotiations for subsequent contracts, recognizing that and then working with bargaining teams to recognize that, as well as the requirements that we maintain the district's solvency and fiscal stability. And so it may be difficult, but if we are transparent with numbers and share the numbers and share the shared goals of the district with the teachers, I'm confident that we can come to fair solutions that recognize that and also keep the district on sound financial footing.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. I, again, agree with what Cynthia said. We need to make sure that we can pay this year's teachers well and next year's teachers well, but that we also can educate future students and pay future teachers well. So we really do need to be transparent as we look at those outward year projections and we look at our property tax revenues and assumptions and increased special education costs, increased pension costs. We need to make sure collectively that we're talking through all of those factors and looking at them together. I also think that housing is key, and this is something that is a county-wide effort. So the County of Marin and the Marin County Office of Education are working in conjunction to develop a very sizable housing project that will house over 100 educators. And so that is an incredible step forward. And working with the state is really key there. They're making it easier and putting some money behind it to build that sort of housing. So in particular, as we have teachers retiring and we're hiring younger teachers, we'll need that housing.
Thank you, Emily. Renee.
Thank you. The purchasing power needs to be collaborated between as many of the districts as possible. There's a variety of services that can be performed at various district levels that do not require having it at each campus. So I think that we really need to continue to work on that. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Tautier is very active, and apparently Emily is too, in the program that is attempting to discern and figure out which specific things can be shared between the districts. Clearly, teachers can't be, but we can with respect to wellness and to some security issues and purchasing power. So, thanks.
Thank you. Kevin.
I'm confident that the inflation that we have experienced regionally and nationally since, call it the end of lockdown, will be a topic that we get to discuss when we come to renegotiate or renew our labor agreements. I don't think we should be doing anything outside of that. I do think that when we got into those negotiations, we did a good job of putting out to our labor partners transparently our projections, and I expect that the best way to address our situation going forward would be to do what we did in the past as we head into a new round of labor negotiations.
Thank you. Barbara.
There's this very interesting irony to it all. When we're in a system where we value our schools and our teachers, who arguably can't afford many to own property here in this community, and we have to build special housing for them. Here they are doing the hard work and they lose out. To me, that's it's unfortunate. And I'm going to say that because, you know, there was a day where teachers lived in your own neighborhood with the lawyers and the bankers. What's happened to us? So that to me is an agenda item I would actually talk about, because I don't think that's right for teachers to have specialized housing and not be able to live like the rest of us here in this county. In terms of the inflation and all this, we are in vastly changing times. We have major issues environmentally. We need to shift gears and look at what is essential. And we do need to make some hard choices. And it will better us in these decision-making efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, last question. Class sizes across the district have increased steadily over the past 3 years. In your opinion, what impact does class size have on learning? And Barbara, you can go first.
So what does class size have
Can you
on
read it
learning?
again?
Yes.
Okay.
I took a year substituting in many public schools in San Francisco and Marin County when I lost the position the last roundabout, because I wanted to do a deep dive into where education is at. As a sub, we all know how subs are treated, which was amazing to me because I thought it was opportunity actually for leadership, you know, bring respect to the table. But what I found in large classroom, it's not about learning, it is about managing. That's it. So many bullies run the classroom. Teachers are managing behavior much of the time, rather than learning. And so we really need to shift that into a more human level where the teachers are dealing with emotional, physical, academic, so much is on them. We need to give them that respect and find a way to lessen the burden so our children can actually benefit from an opportunity in their classrooms. This is a real important issue. I went through, I couldn't believe what I saw that year, which I wrote about, by the way, to document. I cannot, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia.
The increased class sizes, which really has been minimal, and part of it was to fully staff and stabilize our budget. There's actually a lot of research out there showing that it's not so much the class size as it is the management of the class and the engagement of the class. And so again, culturally responsive teaching, engaging teaching, right? You know, Ben Franklin's, right? Involve me and I learn. That approach to teaching makes students excited to be in the classroom. And when an issue comes up in the classroom, meeting that issue head on, right? And getting kids to see the classroom as a community, as a family, why the rules for management are in place, and working to make kids excited about the teaching is what guarantees success in the classroom, and less than class size. And so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Emily.
So class size matters, but it is in no way the most important indicator of successful teaching and learning. Student engagement is key. And then there are a couple of key things to getting students engaged. One is teacher collaboration. So teachers having the time and the opportunity to learn from each other and learn best practices. If one person has a particularly effective lesson, in one aspect of what you're teaching, teachers need to be able to come together and learn best practices from each other. And that is able to happen in our schools. And partially the new or the expanded teacher learning program, teacher leader program, will help with that. Project-based learning is another key, and that certainly can also help with large classrooms. And that really is where kids are able to learn by doing. So that's vitally important. So I think that the sizes that we are within right now are appropriate. It's really all about the quality of instruction and then the engagement of the students.
Thank you. Renee.
I am a very strong advocate for smaller class sizes. Largely what happens when you're a person who doesn't tend to get engaged, and there's so many of our students who don't get engaged because they're shy, or they don't feel part of, or they're afraid to speak out. They don't want to raise their hand for fear of being put down because their answers. So I think that the smaller the class size, the greater the learning. Best of all is one-on-one, for goodness sakes. It does amazing jobs. But in the county and nationwide, my research has shown that 16:1 teacher student ratio is optimal. The teacher student ratio in our district seems to be significantly greater. And then when pink slips were handed out to 8 teachers this past March, it made them even worse.
Thank you, Renee. Kevin.
I'm not a classroom teacher. I've been in classrooms and gone to school. I defer to the perspective and insights of people like Cynthia and our administration. I will tell you, I run a program in the city and have for the last 10 years, targeted to people in their later 20s to early 30s, professionals. We would not run the program less than 25, and we would not run it more than 35. Because less than 25, you lose, I think, an adherence to, or the dynamic that I think is valuable in the interrelation. I think beyond 35, you go the other direction. So I defer to the experts and the people who understand how to deliver the most effective education within, and what that means in terms of, teacher to student ratio. But I believe in sort of where we've targeted our class sizes right now.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. That concludes the question portion of the forum. And before the candidates make their closing statements, I want to share some key information about this year's election, because that's what we're all here for, to learn about how to vote, right? New this year, Marin County has implemented the Voters' Choice Act, offering more days and more ways to vote. Now, all active registered voters are automatically mailed a ballot about a month before the election. Ballots can be returned by U.S. mail at an official secure ballot drop box or at a vote center. For in-person voting, vote centers replace assigned neighborhood polling places. Voters may vote in person at any vote center in Marin. You don't have to go to the assigned one that you had before. In fact, you go there, you may find that it does not exist anymore. So you go to the vote centers. A complete list of locations is included in your voter information guide. You can also see a complete list of locations on the Marin County Elections Department website. All vote centers will be open at least 4 days before the election. If you have questions, please reach out to Marin County's Elections Department in person, online, or by phone. Okay, slide 1, please. Here are some important dates related to the election. Ballots will be mailed on October 10th. Official ballot drop boxes will be available the next day. And October 24th is the last day to register online to vote. Some vote centers open on October 29th, and the rest open on November 5th. November 8th is election day. All vote centers are open until 8 p.m. Mailed ballots must be postmarked no later than this date. Ballots returned using a ballot drop box must be deposited by 8 p.m. And please remember to sign your ballot if you return it by mail or in a drop box. Your signature is your verification. Slide 2, please. There are many online resources for election information, including the League's website at marinlwv.org. I want to highlight one of these. Voter's Edge is an online tool that provides unbiased, in-depth information about what's on your ballot in English and in Spanish. And this is a League of Women Voters project. Candidates are invited to enter their information. Voters can get a personalized list of candidates, including their biographies and top priorities, and information about local ballot measures and more. So please visit votersedge.org. And you'll see this slide again at the end of the form if you want to take a photo or make notes. So thank you. And now the candidates will make closing statements of 1 minute each. We'll go in a different order than we went in for the opening statements. And I just want to point out that there is one other candidate, Damian Morgan, who planned to be with us tonight, but something came up at the last minute and he is not able to be here. So we will begin opening statements with Renee. Closing statements. Closing statements with Renee. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I am so grateful to the League of Women Voters. I'm actually a block away as I speak right now in Washington, D.C. from where the League early building was. And so it's really going to be fun. I'm going to be going and seeing it tomorrow. I really hope to be elected as the school board trustee. I feel like I can bring the Marin school districts together to collaborate and to share resources and to close the opportunity gap and to ensure that all students find success in high school and beyond. I would ask each of you to go to reneeforschools.com to find out more information about me. Thank you.
Emily?
Thank you for having us tonight. This has been a pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity. The role of trustee is a servant role. We are in service to children. We need to be held accountable to our community, but we truly are serving the children in our schools. One of the most exciting things to me about the idea of moving from the K-8 district to the high school district is that our students have real voice and agency. They're able to tell us what they need. They do that in the TAM district by coming to school board meetings, by filling out surveys, by talking to their teachers and to their peers. And so we need to take their lead and listen to them because they are an incredible young group of people. And our job really is to support them as they prepare for their current years of high school and then beyond. In my role as trustee, I have brought people together, and I think that is incredibly important. We need to collaborate as a board, and we also need to collaborate across boards as we are in service to children. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege to get to serve the Mill Valley School District, and I hope to get to serve the TAM Union District. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia?
So I hope to continue serving in the TAM district because I love working on behalf of children. And I think that we've done so successfully in the last 4 years, and particularly with my work on the Racial Equity Task Force. And getting to, Emily talked about agency and student voice and what's so exciting about high school, which is why I love teaching in high school too, is the energy of students and the energy that they have brought to that task force, the energy that our student trustees bring, ability to hear from Dr. Topier about the efforts being made to, have teachers really engage with students, right? To make that curriculum more diverse, more inclusive, and to ensure that the school is a place where students feel valued, where they feel welcome, where they feel safe, and then are ready to learn. So I think I bring that passion to the board as an attorney, as a former board member, can make hard decisions. So hope to continue doing it.
Thank you. Barbara.
Thank you so much for this forum. It's really been a pleasure. And I just really want to wish all of you the best of luck. It's great to hear your ideas and just really value everyone's participation and service. I think we're all on that same page. My concerns are this, and I've said it before, we are in vastly changing times. Given the state of our community, one of the most affluent communities in the nation, where we are one of the most segregated, still economically segregated as well, racially, economic, environmental carbon footprint, one of the highest across the country. There is going to come a day our children are going to come to us and ask, where were you? Where were you? We have got to shift and fast, and we need to leave that open for the youth to come forward. They've got ideas, and we've got to be really bold right now and unafraid. I've got kids, they're off to college or finishing their last years. And, the work I've done environmentally as well with Sylvia Earle.
Thank you, Barbara. Kevin.
Thanks for including me. I've appreciated the opportunity to share my perspective, interact with the other candidates. I am hopeful that I get reelected in this cycle. I put myself out there as a candidate in 2018, really looking at the needs of the district at that time, which were primarily financial, organizational, decision-making. I'm very proud of the things that we accomplished, taking a district that was going from insolvency, making some hard decisions, standing behind those, leading into COVID, and supporting an administration that I believe navigated that extraordinarily well. Being a trustee has turned out to be, it has involved a lot more than I expected. And I believe over the last 4 years, I have come to understand and been able to provide a perspective that I think is valuable. And I'm looking forward to hopefully participating in the administration of our district in more normal times. So.
Thank you. So thank you to our host partners, to the candidates for participating, and to the League Forum team. And special thanks to the Community Media Center of Marin. We could not have done this without you. A video of tonight's forum will be posted on the League's website in the next few days. And thank you again for joining us this evening. And most important, thank you for voting. And now a few final comments from our host partner, Tara Topier.
Thank you to our candidates for participating in the event tonight, and to the League of Women Voters for facilitating this forum. We appreciate the community involvement in identifying the best candidates for the TUHSD Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.